Picture this scene clearly in your mind. It is a Tuesday morning, 7:14 a.m., and the alarm goes off just like it has for the last 30 years of your life. You are 55 years old. You are sitting on the edge of your bed, and instead of feeling the quiet confidence of someone who has built something solid, you feel a tight, familiar dread settling in your chest. Because you already know what the number in your retirement account looks like, and you already know it is not enough. You did everything you were told to do. You saved money every single month. You cut back on vacations. You drove the same car for 9 years. You skipped the expensive dinners, and you told yourself more than once that you were being responsible. You were doing the right thing. And yet, sitting on that bed at 55, looking at a number that will run out in 11 years if you retire today, the quiet question that surfaces is not, "Did I save enough?" It is something far more uncomfortable than that. The question is, did I save at the right time? Here is the prediction most financial advice will never tell you directly. Saving more money in your 50s does almost nothing compared to saving smarter money in your 40s. The decade between 40 and 50 is not just another chapter in your financial life. It is the chapter where the entire story gets written. Every decision you make in those 10 years compounds forward for the next 25, and every decision you delay in those same 10 years costs you not just money, but options. The option to stop working when your body asks you to, the option to say no to a job you hate, the option to actually enjoy the years when you are still healthy enough to enjoy them fully. Most people believe the problem is how much they save. The real problem is when the right decisions happen and whether the window for those decisions is still open. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why your 40s are the financial turning point that almost no one talks about clearly, what specific rules govern whether this decade builds your freedom or quietly destroys it, and what you can do, starting this week, to make sure you are still in time to change the outcome. There is a concept in financial mathematics that most people learn in theory and almost no one truly feels in their bones until it is too late, and it is called the compounding window. Here's the simple version. Money does not grow in a straight line. It grows in a curve, and the shape of that curve depends entirely on when you put the money in, not just how much you put in. A dollar invested at age 42 is not the same as a dollar invested at age 52. They look identical in your bank statement. They are completely different animals in terms of what they become by the time you reach 67. Let's make this concrete for you. If you invest $500 a month starting at age 40 and you earn an average annual return of 7%, which is a conservative, historically realistic number for a diversified index portfolio, by age 67 you will have approximately $440,000 from those contributions alone. Now here's where it gets interesting for you. If you wait just 10 years and start that same $500 per month at age 50, by age 67 you will have approximately $183,000. You contributed less than half the time, and you ended up with less than half the result. But the deeper truth is not the dollar difference, it's the options difference. $440,000 at retirement gives you choices. $183,000 at retirement puts you back on that edge of the bed moment, doing math you do not want to be doing. What most people never realize is that the compounding window is not infinitely forgiving. It rewards you exponentially for the years you participate early, and it punishes you exponentially for the years you sit out. Your 40s are not just important because you have more income. They're important because you are still inside the window where every dollar you commit has 20 or more years to grow, which is the minimum runway for compounding to become genuinely transformative. Here's the other layer. Your 40s are also the decade when your financial life hits peak complexity. You may have a mortgage, college tuition approaching for your children, aging parents who need support, a career that demands everything you have, and a lifestyle that has quietly expanded to consume almost every dollar you earn. The tension between peak complexity and peak opportunity is the exact reason why your 40s decide everything. The people who navigate this decade well don't necessarily earn more than you. They don't live in monasteries. They understand a small set of specific rules that reorganize their financial decisions around the window that is still open before it closes. Those are the rules you are about to learn. Rule 1. Stop treating retirement as a future problem. The first rule sounds almost too simple to be useful, and that's exactly why most people skip past it without actually changing anything. You need to stop treating retirement as a problem that belongs to your future self, because by the time it feels urgent, the compounding window is already closing. The psychology behind this rule: your brain is wired to discount future pain. Something that will hurt you in 20 years registers as about as threatening as a mildly annoying inconvenience today. Neuroscientists call this temporal discounting, and it's not a character flaw, it's how human cognition is built. But this wiring is catastrophically misaligned with the mathematics of long-term wealth, because the math doesn't care how far away retirement feels. It only cares how early you act. Consider this specific example.
You are 43 years old, and you have been contributing $300 a month to your 401k. You get a raise of $800 per month, paying for the family vacation you have been postponing. That feels like the right use of a raise because the benefit is immediate and visible. Now run the actual numbers for you. If instead you increase your 401k contribution by $500 of that raise starting at age 43, and you leave the other $300 for lifestyle spending, that $500 per month grows to approximately $384,000 by the time you are 67. The kitchen renovation will be worth maybe $15,000 to the value of your home. You will not remember how it felt in 5 years. The $384,000 will still be there, and it will still be growing. If you continue treating retirement as something you will get serious about at 50, the penalty you pay is not just financial, it is the permanent loss of 7 to 10 years of compounding that cannot be bought back at any price, no matter how much you earn later. The rule is this: every financial decision you make in your 40s needs to be evaluated against its impact on the compounding window, not just its impact on this month. This brings us to the behavior that quietly undoes even the best intentions. Rule 2. Name every dollar before it lands. The second rule is a behavior rule, and it is one of the most consistently powerful habits that separates people who build wealth in their 40s from people who look back confused at where the money went. You need to give every dollar a destination before it arrives in your account. Here's the principle. Income without a predetermined structure does not get invested, it gets absorbed. Your lifestyle expands to consume whatever is available, not because you are reckless, but because 100 small decisions across a month, each of them individually reasonable, add up to a total that works against you. The $6 coffee is not the problem. The absence of a structure that captures your investment money before your spending habits reach it, that is the problem. Here's how this plays out in real numbers for you. The average American in their early 40s earns somewhere around $75,000 to $95,000 per year before taxes. After taxes and basic living costs, there is often $1,500 to $2,500 per month that theoretically could go toward wealth building. Most of that money does not get invested. It gets distributed to subscriptions, impulse purchases, lifestyle creep, and convenience spending, none of which you would consciously choose if you sat down and made deliberate decisions. The total is rarely catastrophic in any single month. Across 10 years, the unstructured $1,000 per month that never gets invested represents roughly $166,000 in potential compounding value at a 7% return. That's not a rounding error. That's a meaningful chunk of your retirement security. The practical version of this rule is simple. On the day your paycheck arrives, you move your investment contribution first, before any other spending occurs. You do not save what is left after spending. You spend what is left after saving. This is not a new idea, but the people who actually implement it consistently in their 40s are the ones who arrive at 60 with options. If you do not give every dollar a destination before it lands in your account, your lifestyle will give it a destination for you, and that destination will not be building your future. But naming your dollars is only half the equation. The next rule addresses where those dollars actually need to go. Rule 3. Eliminate the debt that eats your compounding. The third rule lives at the intersection of behavior and mathematics, and it is one of the most counterintuitive rules on this list. Not all debt is equally dangerous in your 40s, and the debt you need to eliminate first is not necessarily the biggest balance. It's the debt with the highest interest rate, because that debt is actively competing against your compounding window and winning. Here's the mechanism. When you carry high-interest debt, credit cards at 19 to 26% APR, personal loans at 12 to 15%, every dollar you have is being used to fight a mathematical battle on two fronts simultaneously. On one front, your investments are growing at 7 to 10% per year. On the other front, your debt is compounding against you at 20% per year. The net result is that you are losing roughly 10 to 13 percentage points of wealth every year that the high-interest debt exists alongside your investment portfolio. You cannot compound your way to freedom while paying 22% interest to a credit card company. Here's the specific calculation that makes this concrete for you. If you are carrying $12,000 in credit cards at 21% APR and making only minimum payments of around $240 a month, you will spend approximately 7 years paying it off and pay over $8,000 in interest charges, for a total of $20,000 on a $12,000 balance. Meanwhile, that same $240 per month invested at 7% over those same 7 years would have grown to approximately $26,000. The swing is not $8,000. The swing is the entire $26,000 you never built, plus the $8,000 you lost. High-interest debt doesn't just cost you money, it confiscates the future version of your money. The rule for your 40s is aggressive and specific. Any consumer debt above 8% interest needs to be treated as a financial emergency, not a manageable monthly expense. You attack it systematically, using the avalanche method, highest interest rate first, minimum payments on everything else, until it's gone. Then you redirect every dollar that was going to debt directly into your investment accounts, immediately before your spending habits absorb it. If you continue treating high-interest debt as a background condition of your financial life rather than an active threat to your compounding window, you will spend the most powerful decade of your wealth-building years fighting a war on two fronts, and the math will not forgive that. Once the debt is cleared and the dollars are flowing correctly, the next rule determines whether those dollars actually grow or just sit there safely losing to inflation. Rule 4. Invest in assets that outlast your working years.
The fourth rule is a systems rule, and it addresses one of the most common and quietly devastating mistakes people make in their 40s. Keeping too much of their savings in vehicles that feel safe but actually guarantee a slow, invisible erosion of purchasing power over time. Here's the principle. Safety is not the same as security. A savings account paying 0.5% interest, or even a high-yield savings account paying 4 to 5%, feels responsible and disciplined. And for your emergency fund, which should be 3 to 6 months of expenses, kept liquid and accessible, it absolutely is. But money beyond your emergency fund that sits in cash equivalents for years is not being saved. It is being slowly consumed by inflation, which runs historically between 2.5 and 3.5% per year. If your money earns 2% and inflation runs at 3%, your real purchasing power shrinks by 1% every year. Over 20 years, that is a significant and compounding loss of wealth, not a gain. The rule for your 40s is that your long-term investment money, the money you will not need for 10 or more years, needs to be in assets that can outpace inflation consistently over time. For most people, the most evidence-supported approach to this is a diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds, which track the broad market and have historically returned 7 to 10% per year over 20-year periods, net of fees. You do not need to pick stocks. You do not need a complex strategy. You need broad exposure, low fees, consistent contributions, and the discipline not to panic sell when the market drops 20% in a year, because it will, and the people who stay invested through the volatility are the ones who capture the long-term returns. Here is the number that clarifies the stakes for you. The average expense ratio on an actively managed mutual fund is approximately 0.66 to 1.0% per year. The average expense ratio on a broad market index fund is approximately 0.03 to 0.10% per year. That difference of roughly 0.7% per year sounds trivial. On a $200,000 portfolio over 20 years, the difference in final value between a 1% fee and a 0.05% fee is approximately $80,000, not because the market performed differently, but because fees compound just as powerfully as returns do in the opposite direction. If you leave your long-term money in low-yield accounts past the point where an emergency fund is justified, you are not protecting your wealth. You are letting inflation and fees quietly consume it over the very years when compounding should be working for you most aggressively. This brings us to the rule that most people save for last when it actually should come first. Rule 5. Protect the asset that generates everything else. The fifth rule is about a category of financial decision that most people in their 40s drastically underinvest in, and the reason is that the return is invisible until the day you need it most. You need to protect your income-generating capacity as if your entire financial future depends on it, because it does. Here is the reality. Your ability to earn income is, at this stage of your life, your single most valuable financial asset. A 42-year-old with a solid career and 20 more working years ahead has a human capital value, the present value of all future expected earnings, that may be worth $1.5 million to $3 million or more. You almost certainly do not have that much in investment accounts yet. Your future income is your wealth engine, and yet most people in their 40s spend very little time protecting it. Protecting your earning capacity means several specific things. It means carrying adequate disability insurance because, statistically, you are far more likely to experience a disabling illness or injury during your working years than you are to die prematurely, and yet most people have life insurance and no disability coverage. A long-term disability that ends your career at 47 without income replacement coverage is not just a health crisis, it is a financial catastrophe that wipes out everything you've built. It means investing in your professional skills and health consistently, because both depreciate without maintenance. And it means building an emergency fund large enough that a job loss does not force you to liquidate investments at exactly the wrong moment. Here is the specific number that clarifies the stakes for you. According to Social Security Administration data, roughly 1 in 4 20-year-olds will experience a disabling condition before reaching retirement age. Individual long-term disability insurance for someone in their 40s typically costs $150 to $300 per month and replaces 60 to 70% of your income if you become unable to work. Without it, A single health event can turn 20 years of disciplined saving into a zero within 2 years of medical bills and lost income. If you continue building your investment portfolio without protecting the income that feeds it, you are constructing a financial structure on a foundation that has no insurance against the single most likely category of catastrophic failure. This final rule reframes everything that came before it. Rule 6. Define what enough actually means for you. The sixth rule is a philosophical rule, and it may be the most important one on this entire list. You need to define clearly and specifically what financial freedom means for your life, because without a defined destination, you will either stop too soon and feel insecure forever, or keep grinding past the point of meaningful return and miss the life you were building toward. Here is the principle. Most people approach retirement savings as a number they are supposed to hit without ever deciding for themselves what they actually need or want their retired life to look like. They hear, save 15% of your income, or you need $1 million, and they adopt those numbers as goals without interrogating whether those numbers match their specific circumstances, their actual desired lifestyle, or their genuine values. The result is either chronic anxiety that no amount of saving ever fully quiets, or the strange hollowness of accumulating more than you need while sacrificing the present for a future that has no clear shape. The rule for your 40s is to run your own retirement math with your own numbers in your own life. The commonly used framework is the 4% rule. If you can live comfortably on 4% of your total portfolio per year, your money is statistically likely to last 30 or more years without running out. That means a $1 million portfolio supports roughly $40,000 per year in withdrawals. A $1.5 million portfolio supports $60,000 per year. A $2 million portfolio supports $80,000 per year. What does your desired retirement lifestyle actually cost specifically? Not someone else's lifestyle, yours. Answer that question and you know your target number. Know your target number, and every financial decision between now and retirement has a direction. The deeper truth here is that enough is not a financial number, it's a clarity question.
People who have defined what enough looks like for them do not spend their 40s accumulating anxiety alongside assets. They spend their 40s building towards something specific, which makes the discipline required to follow the other 5 rules feel less like sacrifice and more like construction. If you never define what enough means for your specific life, you will spend the most financially powerful decade you have either undersaving out of confusion or oversaving out of fear, and neither produces the freedom that is actually available to you. Understanding the rules is not enough. You need a timeline of specific actions, and you need to start this week. This week, you open your most recent bank statement and your most recent retirement account statement, and you write down 3 numbers: your current monthly savings rate as a percentage of take-home pay, your current high-interest debt balances and their interest rates, and your estimated monthly retirement spending target. You are not fixing anything this week. You are getting honest about where you actually are. Most people in their 40s have never looked at all 3 of these numbers simultaneously, and the act of seeing them clearly in one place will do more to motivate the right behavior than any amount of abstract information. Clarity about reality is always the first action. This month, you restructure your cash flow so that your investment contribution moves automatically on the same day your paycheck arrives, before you see the money in your checking account. You pick a number that is slightly uncomfortable but sustainable. If you are currently saving 8%, move to 12%. If you are at 0, start at 5% and increase it by 1% every 3 months. You set up the automatic transfer, confirm it has executed once, and you do not touch it. This one structural change, done this month and left in place, will have more impact on your retirement security than almost any other single decision you can make. This quarter, you audit your debt and your insurance coverage with the same ruthlessness you would bring to a business decision. You rank every debt by interest rate, confirm that your emergency fund covers 3 to 6 months of expenses, and review whether you have long-term disability coverage, either through your employer or privately. If you have high-interest consumer debt, you build a payoff plan using the avalanche method, and you execute the first payment this quarter. If you have no disability coverage, you get at least one quote. These structural protections take time to set up, which is exactly why this quarter is the right unit of time to get them done. This year, you run your personal retirement calculation using the 4% rule framework, define your specific target number, and compare it against what you are currently on track to accumulate based on your current savings rate and expected returns. There are free online calculators. Vanguard, Fidelity, and NerdWallet all provide solid ones that will do this math for you in about 15 minutes. Once you have done this, you know exactly how far you are from where you need to be, and you know whether your current trajectory closes that gap or leaves it open. You are not guessing anymore. You are navigating. Remember the person sitting on the edge of the bed at 55, watching Tuesday arrive with that quiet dread in their chest. That person saved money. They were not careless or indifferent. They just never understood that the decade that built their outcome, or failed to build it, was the decade that ended years before they arrived at that moment of reckoning. The problem was never how much they saved. The problem was that the compounding window closed while they were still planning to take it seriously. Here is the honest truth about how financial outcomes actually work, and there are two paths, and you are already on one of them. If you understand the compounding window and act on it in your 40s, the results reinforce themselves over time. You invest earlier, your money grows more, your options expand, you feel less financial anxiety, and that clarity makes the next right decision easier to make. Each good decision creates the conditions for another good decision. Wealth and freedom compound alongside your money. If you continue to treat retirement as a future problem, the results also reinforce themselves, but in the opposite direction. Each year of delay makes the gap harder to close. The rising difficulty produces discouragement. Discouragement produces inaction. Inaction produces a 55-year-old sitting on the edge of a bed wondering what happened to the years. Which cycle you are in right now is less important than which one you choose to be in starting this week. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Financial Economics found that the single strongest predictor of retirement security was not income level, it was the age at which consistent investment behavior began. People who started consistent automated investment contributions before age 45 were 3.4 times more likely to achieve financial independence by traditional retirement age than those who started after 50, regardless of income. That data is not an opinion. It is the mathematics of time working exactly the way it has always worked. Your 40s are not a warning. They are an invitation. The most powerful financial decade of your life, still open, still offering the compounding window that will determine what your 60s and 70s actually look like. The question is not whether you understand this now. The question is whether understanding it is enough to make you do something different tomorrow morning than you did this morning. Because the person on the edge of that bed at 55, the version of you that lives with regret, is not inevitable. They are a choice. And so is the version of you who wakes up at 65 in the same quiet morning light with nowhere they have to be and nothing they are afraid to look at. Which version of you are you building right now?